moaners, how are you? I like this that we're calling them moaners now. How do you feel about being called a fellow moaner?
What kind of a moaner are you? Are you a moaner and groaner? What does Lisa call this? Coffee groaner?
Yeah, Lisa calls it moaning and coffee moaning and groaning. She always thinks that's what it's actually called.
Dina calls it coffee morning.
I know, you've got to stop that, Dina, if you're watching. Dina's my sister, if you're wondering who we're talking about when we talk to Dina.
I took my bra off last night.
Yes, he was very annoying last night in curry night, but the curry was amazing. We all sat and ate it afterwards and it was delicious. So if you missed our live curry night last night, of course it is uploaded, so watch it. Yeah, what kind of moan are you? I recently found out that I have Libra rising, okay, the balancer, okay? And my God, I hear myself do it 500 times a day. Whatever I moan about or whatever's negative, I always go, yeah, but also, you know, we could say, I'm that kind of a moaner. I moan and then I immediately reverse.
Because I have Scorpio, right? I was asking Christos the other day about whether there was any animal or creature other than the human that kills itself, that commits suicide other than humans. And god-awful realization struck me mid-18th coffee was the Scorpio.
Oh, really?
The Scorpio can and often does kill itself, doesn't it?
So it stings itself.
So I think I'm the kind of moaner who self-destructs. I moan myself to death.
Yeah, you do. You moan.
I destroy me.
Yes, you do. You destroy
down.
yourself, and if you get into, like, if you get on that tack, you can't stop.
Deep
yeah,
moan, deep
yeah,
moan. It's true.
It's true. What kind of moaner are you? How would you describe yourself?
Just as they're answering, could you touch my plum?
Moan. Oh, I think we need a little. We've not had it for a long time.
We have to do it, and once you do it, I'm going to play my piccolo.
Here we go. You can grip me cantaloupes, but you mustn't touch me plums. You can stroke me artichokes, but you mustn't touch me plums.
I was doing an impersonation there
of... You can me cantaloupe, but you mustn't touch me plums.
I was doing an impersonation there of guess who?
Who?
Ice-T.
Did you just try and... No, I'm not even going to say what you did. Ice-T.
I did exactly.
I'm a really good moaner, says Ellen. Lee Darren, I'm a quiet moaner. I moan every...
I'm a quiet moaner. I moan under my breath, Lee Darren.
Oh, you're an under the breather.
No.
What, do you do this? Oh, right.
Did you do that?
Oh, yeah.
It's Maria's mum's Claire's 75th birthday.
Oh, we should sing to you afterwards. And Jane Bentley sulks and licks my wounds.
Beg your pardon.
Have you heard of the whistling moaner?
Who's that?
The people that don't moan, but they whistle.
Sorry, what is it? Claire's mum. Sorry, let me get this quickly. Claire's... Oh,
the whistling moaner. You have a look. Okay. Who else? I moan a lot, says... What's your name?
Claire, 75.
Much love, Jane. Oh, I've never read your name out before.
Hello, much love, Jane.
Much love, Jane.
You moan
don't
a lot.
sound like a moaner.
No.
Yeah. Like if you have a coffee with friends, say you're at work and you go, let's go for a coffee.
Oh, I quite like
Do
it.
you moan more, or are you looking for the positive of your day in a coffee break?
In a coffee break? No, you know what? I always like to encourage other people to offload. It's like, oh, what, you know, I'm not gonna take my burden. I'm not the kind of person to go there and go, oh God, I do.
Oh, babe, a bit loud again. Sorry, it's just like sometimes
I don't
put
do
my
that.
finger in my ear.
I don't do that. What I do is I go, I'll ask how they
Don't
are.
on my plums because they are delicious. You better make sure you wash that off.
Yeah, no, I like to invite moaning. It's kind of what we do here, really.
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, that's how that all started, wasn't it? Because with the pandemic, we
Yeah.
all moaned together.
Yeah.
I'm a listener, says Lucy Heaney. Yes, I like to listen to other... Right, now stop. Right. Now, the reason we were a bit late to... Asaya. Who's that?
A sulker, not a sulker.
No, Asaya. I noticed my hubby is turning into a sire as he approaches 50.
Edward Bevington says, I am a savage. I moan about everything.
I'm a sire.
Savage.
I'm a sire. And do you know what? It's actually really, really good for you to sigh.
We talked about this, about getting up and down. We did
Because it removes stress.
What noises do you make when you get up and down? Let's just do it.
What do you mean?
Get up. And sit down at the end of the day. Oh, it's quite a nice sound.
It's a nice sound.
So,
No, I'm not going to keep doing it.
No. I just want to sit there because I go.
Well, it's something to watch, isn't it? Because why? What's aching? What's creaking? What do you need to do some yoga and stretch your muscles out?
So, yeah.
Anyway, so the reason we were late was because we were
having
chatting with
sex.
our girl.
We weren't. I'd just like to say it. Okay, come on.
We were chatting with our girls about a story we know very little about, actually, and it is quite. We were like aghast with everything they said, weren't we?
Lil Tay. This is
Tay.
the story of the influencer, the 14-year-old. They call her a rapper, but she was a flexer, which apparently is this thing where
Maddie was just explaining.
people will show off sort of wealth if they've got money or cars and things like that.
Wealth, guns, all that sort of stuff.
And they were talking about it over dinner last night, and this is the story that this influencer has died at the age of 14 alongside her brother. We'll talk about her story in a minute, because just as I read into it in Variety magazine, it's quite a story.
And baffling.
Baffling.
Utterly baffling. So I don't know if any of you know anything about that, about
Did
her
any of you know
or
of
followed her.
Lil Tay? I mean, if you do have a thing.
Let us
Other things
know.
we're going to talk about. I really want to talk about the migrant fuck off back to France drama. The phraseology used by the Tory, is he the deputy Tory chairman or something? Lee Anderson. And then, of course, Diane Abbott, who's now an independent MP, due to misplaced comments about allegedly anti-Semitic comments. She then sort of posted something where she was riffing or being sarcastic or trying to twist, or I would argue, caricature how awful the language was he was using, but she used it
Hang on, but say what it was first.
He said "fuck off" back to France.
Yeah.
I've said that.
Oh, did you say that?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I said,
darling, I missed
when
you.
Lee Anderson said, "fuck off" back to France about migrants. She's then reused this phrase about the 42 migrants who died sadly, saying, "Well, they've certainly fucked off somewhere else." Now, what she was trying to say with that, she's deleted the post. Lee Durrant, she does put her foot in it a lot, but there's something about this story that's really annoying me, and we may as well stick with it because we're on it. So Lee Anderson says, Lee Anderson said this. He's been very outspoken about lots of things. He was the one that said people go to food banks because they can't cook. He said that nurses don't know how to manage their finances.
So many of his comments. It's always inflammatory, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was about migrants moving on to the Bibby Stock, or whatever the bloody name of that stupid boat is, the migrant ship, the ferry. And his line on it was, well, they should fuck off back to France, which is incredibly inflammatory language.
But it's also electioneering.
Well, it's electioneering, but it's also the kind of language you don't actually want leaders or government officials to be using. So Diane Abbott says that migrants have
indeed... And he got no reprimand.
No, exactly. Well, Rishi Sunak supported him. Diane Abbott, in fact, said migrants have indeed fucked off as 41 drowned in tragedy off Italy. And it just strikes me as odd, and I want to know what you think, guys, that she seems to be the subject of more annoyance, anger and frustration than him.
But where?
Why? On LBC. Right-wing press once again homing in on Diane Abbott's unforgivable gaffe, whereas it's quite forgivable for Lee Anderson to use this kind of language, which, as language about migrants, is some of the most loaded language you could use. And I think what she was trying to do look, she has history of being clumsy. But I think of all the clumsy things she's done, this is the least difficult to understand. She was clearly using the language not in a way to say they've literally fucked off to the bottom of the sea. She was trying to conflate the idea that using language like this actually is associated with these kind of tragedies. And someone rang in earlier today and made a really important point. Would he say fuck off back to Ukraine or anywhere else to any Ukrainian migrant or asylum seeker?
No, because that's not going to win him the election.
No, we know
but
that.
This will, and it's so obvious, and it makes me
so
cross.
extreme.
It makes me so cross. It's so obvious what they're doing, trying to get the pitchfork people out and trying, the old red meat.
But once again, the right-wing press now have Diane Abbott to home in on rather than
like
Lee Anderson to home in on. And we now have the government that's seeking to leave the European Convention of Human Rights or Court of Human Rights. I mean, to be fair, lots of Conservatives have themselves come out describing his words as fascistic, and that this runs the risk of making middle Britain voters. And we've got many here, many well-meaning, brilliant, middle of the road kind of liberal Conservatives, if you like. Even they've said this is going to alienate people, but I don't think they care about that. I think they want to alienate. But the part of this story that's really annoying me is how the press are going to home in on Diane Abbott and not on his original comments. And that's the bit that really pisses me off.
Because what she said, and did you not read out the whole thing because you didn't want to be, what she said?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't read the whole quote because it was upsetting. But what she was trying to do was to just show equally how inflammatory that kind of language can be, and that it's not acceptable. What she was saying, well, we could say, X, Y, Z, and I just can't believe that any person can think that these parallels aren't going to be drawn. We're not going to think, but look at what he's saying.
Sorry, what I don't.
Well, she's trying.
It's quite clear what she's doing. I think it's really disingenuous to suggest there's any lack of clarity.
Lots of people don't. I can't believe that many people think are not getting it. I'm not getting it.
Well, that's my point. That's my point.
I can't
think
even
of
say
all
it.
the mistakes she's made, it's not really a mistake. What she's saying is she's throwing a spotlight on the awfulness of the language, that when he says fuck off back to France, it's the same language, it's terrible language. She's applying it to the worst example of what's happening to these people that you're telling to fuck off back to France.
Thank you, that's exactly what
And the reason they're sinking to the bottom of the sea, which is what she says, the reason these people are dying is because of this governmental sanctioned language.
Yeah.
That's why. And I think, once again, let's home in on, and I'm going to say it, let's not beat around the bush, let's just say it. They're homing in on her because she's black. That's it. The press in this country is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
Doesn't help her being a woman either.
And a woman, I mean, Lee Anderson has sat there saying the most unspeakable things, but he gets given a pass by the Prime Minister.
Yeah. I mean, shouldn't he have been admonished for that by the Prime Minister?
No, Rishi Sunak backs Lee Anderson. Whereas that's not all Tories, lots of Tories
are not happy
are saying
with
that this foul language and sentiment, look at him. I mean, there's footage of him in his white shirt. He squared up to a Brexiteer the other day, recently apparently, and threatened to have a fight with him, saying, why are you dressed like a homeless person?
But the Tories love him.
Of course they
love
do.
him. They absolutely love him. And they're using him. That's the other thing he doesn't realise. Do you think behind his back they're not going,
of course they are, absolutely.
Let's push him out there.
But I think
get them all riled up. I bet he gets no bloody respect.
But there are Tories, as they say here, rightly, the Independent reports, there are Conservatives who are worried that we're becoming the even nastier party. But unfortunately, to hold on to those voters that voted for Farage, they're going to have to become the nastier party. Yeah, look, Edward Bevington, not true, Conservatives. Literally, we don't use that language generally. I agree, absolutely agree. The vast majority of Conservatives don't. But this kind of stuff, and what frustrates me is the coverage. And the coverage is now going to be distracted by Diane Abbott again. And
now, don't get us wrong, there's many times when we've had a go at Diane Abbott because of the ridiculous things she says, and she doesn't think enough, and she puts her foot in it, and then she's always trying to backpedal and apologise. And a couple of people have said it's not just because she's black. That's not what Mark's saying. It's not just because she's black, but it plays a part.
No, I'm not saying it's just at all.
It does play a part in this. There's no two ways about it with the right-wing press.
It just strikes me as odd that they are on her faster than anyone else. It's just curious. I just find it curious. And I think white people almost aren't in a position to say that it isn't that. It just feels odd. It just feels really, really odd. And I just think it's just petrifying that we have this attitude, just this sanctimonious, hate-filled attitude to migration. And yet, we can pick and choose when it's absolutely fine. when it's fine, and this is no, yes, it is fine to look after the Ukrainian, asylum seekers. Of course it is. But why is the same standard not applied to other people, often of a different skin colour? Unforgivable, often from the Middle East. It drives me mad. And on that note, I just want to raise this because we rarely talk about this very quickly. Very pleased to see that the American government, or some officials in the American government, described Israeli settlers as terrorists in the ways in which they were attacking Palestinians in some of the disputed territories. It's one of the very rare occasions where the American government have actually agreed and said that some Jewish settlers have used terrorist tactics. You rarely ever hear that. You rarely ever hear that.
And why this time? Sorry, I haven't seen this story, so I can't respond to it. What?
Well, there was it was a particular case. During clashes, a 19-year-old Palestinian boy died. Two men, the residents said, arrived in a white Toyota, opened fire and shot them. I mean, it was just a clear case of shooting a Palestinian who had a potato, I think, that he was going to throw. I mean, it cuts both ways. It cuts both ways. I just find the tilt on the coverage of these things is so
the manipulation,
obvious.
The absolute manipulation.
It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I just thought I had to get a little bit, And quickly, I just want to mention, because you can't really ignore this, Hawaii. Bloody hell, has anyone seen the footage in Hawaii? This is just awful. People jumping into the sea to escape fire. I mean, if we have any doubt that this world is hotting up, then, we just need to look to this stuff. It's terrible. Sorry, okay. Women self-help gurus. Let's go to something that we were talking about earlier. Who are these, Nads?
Wow.
Sorry.
Well, I don't know really. I don't know absolutely, but this is a trend that they're talking about that is, I think, has been on YouTube for a while, but now there's a TikTok wave coming in, and millions upon millions of views are happening with this, as they say, new wave. Now, these women, and there's quite a number of them, are being likened to and described as
Andrew Potato.
The female version of Andrew Potato, which, first of all, worries me. That do we always have to say?
Yeah, well, yeah.
We've got a woman here that's just as bad. You know what I mean? That in itself is.
Yeah.
But it's not new, is it? With self-help books and wellness gurus for women, except I think mine was Run with the Women Who Run with Wolves. I remember reading.
Right. Andrew Potato is another name for who. It's the middle syllable that we hate to say.
Yeah, but so basically, what it seems to be is, and there's, as I say, there's a whole group of these women, and they are very much, pull yourself together. Like, I've just watched a couple of videos, like proper shouting into the video about how pathetic we all are. When are we going to stop taking the shit from men? Yeah, when are we going to stop taking the shit? When are we going to...
so just to clarify what this is about...
patriarchy, the patriarchy by manipulating wealthy men.
Just want to clarify, because I'm slightly confused, just in case people aren't quite hooked into what this is. This is the idea that there are these sort of social media gurus.
Wellness gurus.
Yeah, that are promoting, like you say, is it the equivalent or is it a pushback against Andrew Potato?
They're being described now as
a lot of people getting very confused by Andrew Potato. We are refusing to say his surname. But someone else is in the chat, so...
So they're being described now in the press as the female version. The videos I've watched, they're angry, and they are, promoting the idea that it's time to take the power back. One of them's had 20 billion views.
What, one of their films? Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
And they're also... Thing is with this, as we know, our young people will scroll for hours and hours and hours on TikTok, and you come across something like this as a more mature woman, and you're going to pick and choose from it, and you're going to be able to do that. But I think at a time when so many young women, actually we were talking about you, Zoe, this morning, if Zoe's here, so many young women are, when you talk to them, are just so disillusioned in so many ways with men, with the dating game, with the toxicity of pornography bleeding into, it seems, every sort of situation that they are with men, whether it's dating, whether it's travelling on the bus, on the tube. I mean, God, the stories that you hear, it's just mind-blowing. And I think what these women are doing is tapping into that. And I think where it can be dangerous, you could take some of it with a pinch of salt and have a bit of... I mean, I think there's some extremely toxic videos and views from them out there, but what I've seen is more like...
So this is the idea of almost like turning patriarchy on its head and exploiting it and rinsing
things
it for
are
what
like,
it's worth.
eventually you're going to stop looking for love.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of vibe. You'll get to a place where you can feel happier because you will stop believing that there aren't any good men out there and that you're going to find love and you're going to get the roses round the cottage. And the sooner that you do that, the better.
So
that's
is
kind of the vibe.
But is it almost the last bastion of sort of giving up? This is for women who've given up on their hope of a fair world.
Well, I think it's for women that haven't fully yet and need to. So they're pushing, that's their attitude.
Right.
You need to push through. You need to just start seeing for men for what they are, which is, you know, not all of them, but a lot of them talk about looking for a wealthy man.
Right.
And do you remember a few months ago when we were talking about the new craze for young women becoming girlfriend, the housewives, but not that. It's not that vibe. It's not. You find somebody so wealthy that everything you need doing is paid for by somebody else, and at the same time, you're getting back. We're getting back. We're taking the power back. Right. And as I say, it's just more the younger brain that I worry about with that, because they haven't got the experience. And actually, this is what the psychologist was saying here, who specialises in social media influence. And she said, with a young mind, without that experience to take and leave these bits, rather like, you would say, the male toxic influencers we've spoken about, it can be, you know, a real cause for concern. Because what you've also got to remember is when a young person is hearing, God, all men are toxic and all men are a nightmare and you have to give up on love and you have to find this way, that's a terrible place to be for a young person and a paranoid place to be. Because we try and say this all the time, don't we, with our daughters when they go, oh God, all men. I say all the time, it is not all men. There are, you know, millions of amazing men. It's just the promotion of this idea is everywhere, you know, that all men are toxic and all men are awful, and you have to, and of course, potato head, everything that's gone out. They would have you believe that all men think like that. So in a way, what I worry about with this sort of craze is that women are coming in and they all say we're nothing like potato head. We don't agree with anything, but they're kind of supporting that belief.
Well, it isn't the danger with this or the worry with this from a sort of from an older generation's perspective looking down on them is that this provides the illusion, if you like, for young women of gaining some kind of equality, gaining some kind of status, taking control of the narrative, when in fact it's actually a sort of angry version of relinquishing responsibility and actually accepting what the status quo is.
Exactly. Well, it's the bitterness. It's like, you know, I want our daughters to grow up without bitterness. And it is a very, very difficult line to tread as a parent or as an auntie or as an uncle or whatever, if you're around young people, of warning them of the dangers, explaining to them about the red flags and the green flags and all that, but also, and sometimes when you go too crazy about because you're very frustrated about men and what they might experience out there, my worry is always bringing it back to also, it's not everyone is like that.
Yeah, the difficult balance is equipping them with an awareness of of how bad it can be without telling them that this is all it is.
There's no hope, which is what these wellness gurus are putting out. There is no hope. You will get to a point where you understand there is no love.
I think they do. I think they disqualify themselves quite quickly when one of them, I've noticed, is a self-declared sociopath. Because as soon as a diagnosed sociopath, and that's not to say that, you know, you could argue, well, that's really quite rehabilitative, isn't it? To say say I'm a sociopath, and this is a fact of me. But my worry is that as soon as you read that, I, rightly or wrongly, immediately go, okay, so you're a diagnosed sociopath. I'm gonna struggle and have trouble with most of what you're about to say then.
But what she
you're a
says is,
sociopath.
because I'm able to see what these men are doing and how they're
So she
manipulating
cuts
you.
through the shit.
Yeah, because I'm not looking for love and I'm not looking for 20 billion views.
Interesting.
I mean, you know, what is going... I think we just so often, as when we feel so
female Andrew
fucking
Potato.
powerless, don't we? Sometimes we're just like, and I was thinking of our regular moaners here, the younger ones that are in this hellish dating game, and it's one day after another that just turns out to be so bloody miserable and depressing. And they have caught on to this vulnerability that's out there.
And there was one paragraph, there's a piece in The Guardian by the journalist saying she can kind of understand why there's an appeal. Because she said when she was feeling particularly down, hard day at work, had no extra money to go for a meal, struggling with swiping right on the dating app.
Yeah.
She said a part of her suddenly went, oh, would it be quite nice to just have a bloke wander in who's all right, who kind of pays for everything.
This was the journalist that said that. That's what I mean. So it's just the ongoing, troubling dialogue that we have to all have with, you know, well, young people, not just women, of trying to keep that balance and being aware that TikTok scrolls forever. So if your young person gets to see one of the... TikTok will feed them that till the end of time.
Well, and on that note, we're going to go on to something fed purely by TikTok. Faith Goodman, as a mum to boys, so difficult. Hopefully, we hopefully bring them up to be respectful and polite to everybody. Not all girls are respectful or polite to our boys. Absolutely right.
Absolutely.
I mean, of course, it cuts both ways.
The conversation is with both. Like, I hope all mothers and fathers of sons are having the conversations about potato head. It's very, very important. Yeah. In the same way that it is for parents of daughters to have the conversation with these self-styled gurus who are going to batter your children into thinking as the same way as them. It's dangerous.
And it doesn't take a lot of work, really, to work out who we're referring to when we say potato head. But just keep referring to him as potato head. It sort of takes some of the power out of him, I think. Going back to TikTok and how people can be persuaded to feel things, think things, behave in certain ways, do things, courtesy of social media trends and all that kind of stuff. Someone, I can't remember who, I think it was Amy May, said, do we need these influencers? How many more influencers do we need telling people what to do and all this kind of stuff? Chaos. I saw this. I got an alert yesterday on X, formerly Twitter, with chaos breaking out in Oxford Street with youths. I think about 12 different groups of police were called into Oxford Street as a TikTok trend, basically encouraging youngsters to wear balaclavas and basically loot from JD's Sports. Went crazy. There were loads of arrests. There were loads of fights. Sawalha Braverman has apparently this morning said she calls for the perpetrators of the Oxford Street chaos to be hunted down.
Oh, God, that language.
Hunted down. Well, again, because we've got to look like we're doing something. It's easy to say.
Hunted down. Well, how are you going to do that, Sawalha Braverman? How are you going to do that with our police force in an absolute fucking state? Look at the Met. I mean, really. So what? When you make a statement like that, what next?
Hunted down.
What's the next bit that you're going to do and say and put into action?
Yeah, it's words. It's just words. Words don't come easily. Anyway, so that was yesterday. And so Lil Tay. Let's talk about Lil Tay. This is this influencer. Again, I asked earlier if any of you had heard of her.
Awful. Look at that.
Heard of her.
Look at that.
I had to call police this morning because two boys were walking in ski masks with sticks in Cheltenham Street. No joke. This morning, Edward Bevington, you're joking. Bloody hell. Just awful. But it's happening a lot. Just quickly on that Oxford Circus thing. Oxford Street, Oxford Circus is often a hotbed of all sorts of weird violence. I mean, I know a lot of people, it used to be part of the tourist trap. I avoid Oxford Street like the plague, I would recommend. It's a thoroughly unattractive place. So, this is the influencer Lil Tay, who's died, according to their family, unexpectedly, according to a statement shared on her social media accounts. Lil Tay, whose real name was Claire Hope, rose to fame on Instagram and YouTube in 2017 when they were just 9. Her viral fame centered around videos of her rapping, flexing. She was the youngest flexer of the century.
She said that herself,
Yeah, which is showing off money and fast cars and what have you. And this is the news that she disappeared from social media about, the girls were saying, in about 2018. So she must have been 9 at the time when she disappeared. And there have been all sorts of kind of
But
swirling
before that,
stories.
she had been very, very present.
Yeah.
So she just very suddenly
vanished.
stopped. And at the time, people were really concerned,
Confused.
weren't they?
Yeah.
Because when she first came out, everybody thought it was really funny and they were really enjoying it, and that's how she grew very quickly. But then the questions started to come as to, well, who is she doing this, and where is she doing?
Yeah, and
who's
who's
giving her all this
managing
money?
her? Yeah,
and how come
exactly.
she's jumping around on these really expensive cars? And then
Apparently in 2018, she was reported to be 9 at the time. She addressed speculation about who was sort of pressuring her or putting her in this position on Good Morning America, where she denied that her family was forcing her into online fame. But then the girls were saying there was some story about her mother being a real estate.
Then it came out that her mother. Now we don't know these. We don't know what's true or not. But this was the stories going round that her mother was a real estate agent and she was taking her to where these houses were and letting her jump all over these cars that weren't their cars. So it just seems to.
And then there was a massive custody battle, and there were loads of suggestions that there was sort of bad behaviour by her father
And her brother.
And her brother. And her last post pivoted around, or was about the rapper. I don't you remember the rapper who died, XXX Tentacion, and that was her last post. But yeah, this.
And so at the time, the girls were saying the rumour was that why she was so dedicated to XXX Tentacion that was something to do with her
Connected.
disappearance, and people had thought that something had happened, that she'd hurt herself or whatever. But there's just been totally silence. And then there was this statement yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. That's on her social media, saying it's with a heavy heart that we share the devastating news of our beloved Claire's sudden and tragic passing. We have no words to express the unbearable loss and indescribable pain. This outcome was entirely unexpected, and that's the bit I don't understand, and has left us all in shock. Her brother's passing adds an even more unimaginable depth to our grief. During this time of immense sorrow, we ask for privacy as we grieve this overwhelming loss, as the circumstances surrounding Claire and her brother's passing are still under investigation. Doesn't sound good.
Then the police released
sound
something
good.
today saying we have no knowledge of this death. It's just the most bizarre story, but right in the middle of it is this little girl, and you just think, what on earth has got... A very weird statement, isn't it? Yes,
Good chip
people saying
lollipop.
that.
Kids who act like adults will get treated like adults. Who knows what's happened to them?
Very
Christos,
strange, but I do think this story is going to go on and
Christos,
on.
a mystery surrounds Lil Tay's death. His father cannot confirm or deny whether the 14-year-old social media star is dead. What the fuck?
Yeah, what?
What? It's so,
Is it totally
so bizarre.
confirmed? Does anyone know if the brother is?
Well, this is based upon a statement on their social media. So is it true?
strange.
Good question, Kirsty Catchpole. Is it true? Finally, just a couple of stories. Well, just one little follow-up. Do you remember Cardi B being potentially charged with throwing a microphone at someone who threw a drink at her? The microphone has been sold for $100,000 on eBay.
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's so sick.
Whoever picked up the microphone.
I suppose it's just
made a
fan
killing.
memorabilia, isn't it? Whatever it is.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a happy birthday for Claire, who's 75.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Claire. Happy birthday to you.
And Claire was someone's mum, and I've forgotten whose mum it was, but yeah, happy birthday. 75. Wow. Pat's going to be 75 this year. And did you have one that you wanted to... No? That's
No,
not one, no?
no.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, lots of love.
Very weird story, I know,
Very weird
Julie.
story.
But I mean, I think it's going to be in the press over the next few days for sure, because it just raises more questions, doesn't it?
Really does. Anyway, guys, have a lovely day. Enjoy the heat if it's as hot where you are, as hot as it is here.